All right, you guys, I am back. I'm coming with another video tutorial. Let me just get the camera right and I will get started. All right. So what I'm going to show you guys today is how to make a pattern, all right? I know some of you guys are new. You're ready to just dive straight into the sewing, but it is not time for you to dive into the sewing just yet. The very first thing that every designer needs to know is how to take measurements, which was the first video. This is the second thing that you need to do before we start cutting into fabric, all right? Before we start designing things, you have to know how to make patterns. And what I'm going to teach you an easy way to make patterns. I'm not going to teach you the very, very in-depth technical way of doing it like my teacher taught me, all right? You guys would really be upset. But there's some shortcuts that you can take here and there to really help you out. So what I have here, I have a notebook. Hopefully everybody has a notebook with measurements. I'm just going to take a measurement from one of my clients. So I have all of their measurements written down. I already showed you how to get all of these measurements in the previous video. I have my yards of muslin. I have several yards here. Another thing I have is my measuring tape. I have a yardstick. And I have a pen. Where did my pen go? There it is. A pen. Another thing that you're going to need is scissors. You need really good sharp scissors to cut out your pattern when it's all finished. So let's just go ahead and dive straight in. All right. So what we're going to do, I want you to have your fabric, your muslin, on fold. All right, when you buy the fabric in the fabric store, it's already on fold anyway. So what I mean by on fold is I just want it folded one time. All right, so as you can see, I've been using my muslin, so I need to even this up. It has a big chunk cut out, so I'm just going to turn it around on my table here, and first and foremost, I'm just going to straighten it up. So give me a second. Should have been prepared. All right, so I got it pretty straight, not the straightest that it's ever going to be, but you get the picture. All right, now depending on the width of your muslin, you may or may not be able to make your pattern like this. You may even have to fold it up. Fold it all the way out and just have one layer. All right, so what I'm going to do, you guys, one of the things that I really want to point out on the front end, keep in mind when you're making your pattern, you're only doing 1/4 of your complete top. I know that sounds weird, but I just need you to rock with me, okay? 1/4 of your top. So that's only half of the front that we're doing. And then we're going to turn around and do half of the back. Okay, so I'm going to show you in this tutorial half of the front. And then all you literally have to do when you're done with the 1/4 of a pattern, the half of your front, you can just lay it on the real fabric on fold, just like you see here on fold. And when you cut it out, you'll have a complete front of your pattern. Same thing with your back. All right, so you have your measurements here. Very first thing you want to do, we're looking at the upper body measurements, all right? Don't worry about the lower body or the arm measurements. Well, you're going to need the arm measurements, but don't worry about the lower body just yet, all right? So what I want you to do in your upper body measurements, look for the biggest measurement that you have on there, all right, which is probably going to be your bust. All right, so in the measurements that I'm looking at, I have the bust at 44. Keep in mind, the bust meaning all the way around, the breast all the way around to the back and back around to the breast. That's considered your bust. So for her, I have 44. Since we're only doing 1/4 of the top, you take that 44 and you divide it by 4. All right, that gives you 11. So if I measure this, I have 17, more than enough. The reason why I did that is you want to make sure you have more than enough fabric to make your front pattern before we start on the pattern. All right. Now you can do it with a pen or a pencil. I should have said that in the beginning. Very first thing you want to do is take your front neck to waist measurement. Front neck to waist. So what you want to do, don't start at the very, very top of the fabric. Okay, so you don't want to start up here. Let's go down, a few inches. I'll go down about 4 inches just to be on the safe side. So I'm just going to make a little mark right at the 4 inches. That's going to be my front neck. So if I do front neck to waist, her measurement was 14.5. So I'm literally going to hold that there, 14.5. I'm going to just make a mark. So that's my front neck to my waist. This is basically from my neck down the middle of my stomach down to my waist, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my yardstick and I'm just going to draw a straight line. Not bad, right? Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my neck measurement. Her neck measurement was 15.5. So if I divide that by 4, it gives me about 3 and some change. Okay? So up here at the front neck, I'm only going to just curve my measuring tape just a little bit. And I'm just going to do 4 for good numbers. I'm going to make a mark at the 4. And I'm just going to curve, slight curve, just like this. Okay? Not bad. Next thing I need is my shoulder length measurement. Okay, so for her, I have 6. Now, we're not going to take that and divide it by 4. We're going to take that full measurement. Reason being is, even though we're doing a partial pattern, the length of the shoulder is still 6 inches. All right, so I'm going to kind of in a diagonal, but not too slanted, but just a slight slant. I'm going to go 6 inches. Okay. So this is what we should look like so far, okay? So this is part of my neck. I have my shoulder. I have my front neck to my waist. Now down here, this is going to be your waist. This line is your waist, all right? So I'm just going to write, just to keep from confusing anybody, waist. Okay, so this is your waist measurement. But her waist wasn't this big. All right, because again, her waist is actually 41. So if I take it and divide it by 4, that gives me a little bit, 10 and some change. Okay? It gives me about 10 and a quarter. So I'm just going to go take my yardstick. I'm going to go 10 and a quarter. And I'm just going to make a little mark here. Okay, just make a small mark. As you can see, I'm not doing anything with that yet, but this is going to be a fourth of her waist. All right. Next thing we need is an arm measurement. Okay, an arm measurement. So the arm measurement, we have her upper arm was 16. 16. So what we're going to do with the 16 is we're going to take it and we're going to divide it in half. We're not taking a fourth of the arm. Think about where the arm is positioned. If we're doing part of the front and we're going to do part of the back, we're only going to take half of that measurement. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. So what I'm going to do, take my measuring tape, and I'm just going to kind of, again, do just a slight curve in here. So basically it looks like I'm going down straight about 4, and I start curving at 4. And you guys keep in mind, you're going to measure this on yourself and make the corrections as needed on yourself. So if things are just a tad bit off, again, that's why we're doing it on this muslin. This is like practice fabric. All right, so we're going to do it on here first, put it up to our bodies, see where it is, see if we need to make the armhole bigger, if we need to curve this a little bit more, see if we need to shorten the length of the shoulders. All of the corrections we're going to do with the muslin. You don't want to mess up the pattern and start cutting straight into your fabric. So the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to take the waist, where I made the waist mark, and I'm going to go up to the armhole in a diagonal. I mean, just however it falls, whether it's straight, whether it's slanted, that is the side seam. Okay? So this is what her front looks like. All right? Now, there are some other measurements that you just want to look at. For example, about right here where this armhole is going this way is the bust. Okay? This is about where the bust sits. If you just look at your own body, you guys, your underarm here, if you just take your finger and move it, you'll be right here. This is your bust. So we want to make sure that the bust, that measurement is good. So again, her bust was 44. If we divide that by 4, we actually have a little bit over 12. We have 12 and a half here. So it's actually a little bit too big. But again, we want to have a little bit of extra space there for the boobs to actually stick out, all right? You don't want them to be so confined. But that's something that can be taken in a little bit later, okay? So you might have to take in the armhole, but what if the arm is too tight? You may have to take it in here, or it may just be as simple as putting a little dart in here, all right? But for the most part, this should fit her extremely well, all right? So this is your front pattern. Let me just take a look at the camera. And what I'm going to do, let me grab a marker. I just want to make sure you can see it extremely, extremely well. All right, so I have a marker. And what I'm going to do is just kind of go over this again. This was the neck. Okay. From here to here, we didn't make a mark because, again, it's on fold. You're going to cut right along this line. This was your front neck to waist. Okay. This line right here is your waist. Then we have the side seam. We have the armhole. Don't be like me, you guys. Iron out your muslin before you start working on it. And then up here was her shoulder length. All right. This is the front, so you want to make sure you label this before you stash it away. So I'm just going to write front, and I'll just put my client's name on it. Her name is Regina. All right. So I have my front. If you don't think you're going to remember what everything is, go ahead and label it. Like I'll write waist. Right here, I'll write side. Arm. Shoulder. Neck. All right, and then front neck to waist. All right, so you guys, it is completely labeled for you. I hope this made sense. What I'm going to do now is just go ahead and cut. Now, you don't want to go crazy with the cutting because keep in mind, it's on fold, and the piece underneath is what we're going to use for our back. So just cut it out exactly as it is. Oops. Just gonna grab the top layer and cut. With it being on fold, that makes it really easy for you to cut. Almost finished here. All right. That pattern is completely done. All right. So we're just going to sit that aside. Next thing we're going to do is the back. All right. So I'm just going to clip that all the way off. Now, the back is going to be a little bit different. Hopefully you're not like me. You didn't cut into that. If so, I'm just going to have to grab a fresh piece. All right. So next thing you're going to do, if you remember, first thing we did on this piece was we did the front neck to waist. Now there is a measurement on here that you would typically get. And it is your back neck to waist. Now, if you took your own measurements, it's almost impossible for you to get that measurement. So you're going to take your front neck to waist measurement and you're going to add 2.5 inches. Okay? Your front neck to waist measurement and you're going to add 2.5 inches. So for my client, that will get me 17. So you see why you shouldn't have cut into that? Because I may not have 17 here. I barely have 17. So my front neck to waist, I'm just going to make a mark. It was 17. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is my neck measurement. Again, we're going to take that. And we're going to divide that by 4. For my client, it was a little bit over 3. Okay, it was about 3.5. So zoom in a little bit for y'all. All right, so I considered this my front neck. fabric was a little bit cut off. So again, I'm taking about 3.5 here in a curve. All right. That is my neck. Then we're going to take the shoulder measurement. Don't forget, the shoulder measurement was 6 inches. And I'll trace over everything with a marker as I go this time instead of at the end. Okay. My shoulder was 6 inches. At a slight slant, okay, because your shoulders are not like this. Your shoulders don't go straight across, all right? Your shoulders has a very slight slant to it, just like that. So just very slight, and again, we're going to correct this pattern. So you don't have to stress yourself about how much should I do, how much should I slant it. You're fine. Very slight, all right? That's your shoulder. All right, next thing we need is our armhole. What was our armhole for my client? Hers was 16, so we divided that by 2, which gave us 8. At a small curve. So again, I went down about half of that. I kept straight about half of that. Then I started gradually curving for the other half. Okay. That's my armhole. Then we had our waist measurement. Our waist was 41. If we divide that by 4, it was a little bit over 10. About 10 1/4. So don't forget, I put my waist, my dot right there. I'm going to just line it up. I'm going to go 10 1/4. And I'm going to just straight line that way. This is my waist, 1/4 of my waist. And the last thing we're going to do, we're going to connect this and this. Now, if you notice, it looks a little bit different. Okay, so we can literally go straight, and that's perfectly fine. Okay. That is our back. Okay, so again, I'm going to label it back, Regina, waist, side, arm, neck, shoulders. All right, it's all there. Let's cut it out. Now, the reason why I suggest you use muslin, I don't know if I ever went over that. I like muslin over paper. I learned how to make patterns on paper, and they were so fragile. So fragile. And it's harder for you to put paper up against you and it catered to your body, and you see how well it fits. So I went a little bit away from what I learned in fashion school, and instead of you using paper, I want you to make your patterns with muslin. It'll also be better for you to store them. it'll be easier for you to put this up against real fabric. Just pin it to the real fabric and cut it out and make yourself a top, you know, or something of that nature. So I prefer muslin over paper any day. All right. So now what I'm going to do, you guys, easily within 20 minutes, we have our front and our back pattern. So you should be extremely, extremely proud of yourself. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my patterns and I'm going to line them up. Okay. So my front pattern here, my back pattern here. Make sure you can see both of those in the camera. And what we're going to have to do is we want the neck by the neck. We want the arm by the arm. So what I'm going to end up doing is flipping over my back pattern, which is okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up and make sure that they are very close to being even, and, you know, we don't have a whole bunch of it off. So if you notice with my neck, there's a perfect curve when I line up the shoulder with the shoulder. But if you look over here with my armholes, it's off just by a tad bit. I want to make sure you guys see that. It's off right here just by a tad bit. So what you want to do is just make a little mark where it's off, and you want to just fix it. Very simple. So it only got off about here. I'm literally, you can use something to hold these things down. This is called correcting your pattern, because at the end of the day, if your front and your back are going to be together, literally you're going to sew right here at the seam. You want these two to be exactly even. So you see how I evened it up? Very, very easy. You see how that is a perfect half circle? All right, you see at the neck, those are going to line up extremely well. This is probably one of the easiest patterns that I've ever corrected before. All right, so if you guys are having a very, very hard time correcting your pattern, like if your shoulders are way off, remeasure your shoulders, remeasure, look at your measurements over again and see if you just, you know, messed up a little bit, or see if you just need to kind of shave off a little bit of either your front or your back. So for the most part, everything is perfect with this. As far as your front neck and your back neck, they aren't going to be even. One thing, if you just look at your body, and once we actually put these together and make an actual top, you'll see that the back is always a little bit longer. It's always a little bit longer than your front. All right. And even in here, this is really high. All right. This is high neck. So if you want to go in here and put a V and give yourself a little cleavage in there, you need to learn. We're going to do pattern manipulation, you guys. So don't get irritated with me, because before we start cutting into any type of fabric, we are going to make a pattern. We just did your front and your back. We're going to do your bottom. We're going to do your arms. You need a pattern for everything, because I do not want you to make the same mistakes that I made and mess up your material. You find a really, really pretty material that you like and you mess it up. All right. I don't want that to happen to you guys. So I am going to have you making a pattern for everything. But if you notice, I can make it extremely simple. I really, really can. So that's all I got for this video. Don't play too much and try to hop into the next lesson, because I have some other things to show you before we really dive in. That's all I got. You guys have a good one.